students, and the grades that we're getting, everyone's grades are slipping if they're taking subjects that don't have a sufficient lecturer. And that's about it, really.
Thank you. We'll make sure that's brought up when we come on to speak to Petrock. Thank you. The action list, we've got quite a lot on there, but hopefully most of them are completed now. So the first one, 195, look at reorganising the bite-sized training. So that was brought up at our Community Safety Partnership, and Toby Davies agreed that this would be reinstated, so that was good news. We can take that one off. Everyone happy? The next one was about having some joint meetings with North Devon Council. Unfortunately, we still haven't got anything agreed. We had something back on dentistry, and there were some online meetings, and there was information sent out about that. But I think it would still be good if we organised one joint on agriculture. So we'll chase that one up. So we'll keep that one on there. 212. That was about the Link Centre and sending a letter to Geoffrey Cox in Devon County. And that was complete. I was just going to ask Councillor Craigie, when is the final decision being taken? Have you got any updates?
Yeah, we believe it's now likely to be in the March cabinet meeting of DCC. Further delayed from a month.
Oh, right, because we had thought it was sort of in the next few days.
Yeah,
So.
because originally they said February, but now they did an unannounced councillors' visit in Barnstaple, which significantly disturbed the Link Centre users in Barnstaple, which has caused them to have to relook at how they visit Bideford and Ilfracombe, because there was essentially more county council staff and officers and councillors there than there were the users, and no one had warned either the staff or the users before they arrived in Barnstaple, which caused a significant amount of distress to the users. So the county has delayed the decision by a month.
Okay.
So that the visit to Bideford can go ahead.
Councillor Benton?
Right, I just want to say that, thank you, Sarah. I wonder whether we should still consider it ongoing instead of complete. I know we've done everything that you were detailed to do earlier in the year, but I don't really consider the situation complete at the moment. And, you know, it's a situation that is still ongoing. We had the presentation by the NHS people on the 22nd, and one of their key challenges of their whole agenda for the next several years was mental health. And I did ask them a question about that, and they emphasised and reiterated that mental health was one of the big issues. And yet we still have this situation with the link centres where we don't know what's going to replace them, we don't know where they're going to be replaced, and they're doing a jolly good job the way they were, and they're just being jettisoned. So I personally can't consider that complete, Cheryl.
Okay, I'm happy to keep it on there, and then we can get an update.
I think we should say letter sent but ongoing or something, you know, for situations like that where, you know, there's no definitive, you know, the reason we asked and sent the letter was to find out something, and we still haven't found out anything, really.
But I think in terms of the council, we've fully put our backing to in support. But yeah, you're right, we can keep it on there and get an update and find out exactly what's happening with it. Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Not aware of either Geoffrey Cox or the county giving anything substantive back other than a decision will be made.
Yeah, the next one, that was to look to arrange a visit. So we did contact both of them, Geoffrey Cox and Councillor McInnes, and all we had back was basically saying that they're aware of the situation, but I'm not aware that either of them attended the Bideford Link Centre. But there's no more that we can do because we've urged them to do it, and we can't physically make them go. So that one can come off, can't it? The next one, oh, that's to do with Holsworthy Link Centre. So we've got the leader here with us, but I am aware...
David, that's the... Oh, sorry.
A county councillor. I'm aware that the building will be vacant if it's not already, and there is discussion over what the building will be used for. So I'd like to keep that on there. Yeah? Have you got a speaker? Microphone.
Thank you, Chair. All I can say is the building has another use. I'm not at liberty to say what it is. It's a county council issue. And it is to do with mental health in a way. And as far as the service that my organisation, which is the Youth Centre and Community Hub, is concerned, we are running what we've been told is that the link service is not to cure mental health, only to refer it onto the NHS, but we will deal with low-level things about anxiety and that sort of stuff, rather than the mental health issues, and we have had one or two, but we refer them on, because obviously you need specialist people, and we can't do people to deal with mental health, or can they just deal with what they can do and refer on in difficult cases? So regards to the building, it is being used. I do know what it's being used for, but I'm not at liberty to say, other than it's the county council using it.
Okay, thank you. We'll leave that as ongoing and refer back to it next time. Next one, invite Stagecoach to the committee. They weren't able to attend, but we did send questions and had responses which were circulated to all councillors. So that was complete. Oh, Councillor Brenton.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you. Yeah, the same thing really. I've been reviewing the questions that we asked and the answers that were given, and some of them were quite definitive, but others, like the screens, the notice boards and the timetables, there's still an uncertainty about that, and there's several of them where they're referring it on to their particular colleagues that would deal with them, but there's no actual solution being recorded. And they do say that they're going to do a review in March of all the situations that we've been talking about, like the lack of timetables, the cancellations, whether there's enough buses going to Petrock and things like that. So I think we should thank them for their answers, but I do think we should send them a letter saying that could they please update us on the situation and give us the results of their review, because there's no point in having a review if they just keep it to themselves and we don't know anything about it, or the public for that matter. So
I think that's a good idea.
I think we should prod them a bit more, really, because I was quite concerned about the fact that they say that it's the county council that should be putting up the timetables, because I didn't realise that for over 100 years timetables have been on lampposts in a paper form, glass, framed, and they've always been provided for people. And bearing in mind that a lot of people who use the bus are elderly people who may not have apps on their phones and be computer savvy. So I think the idea that, it's all the county's responsibility does seem a bit bizarre, really. Surely there should be at least a partnership between the two.
I'm happy if we send a letter thanking them and asking them for, like you suggested, the results of their review. Can we put that on the action list? Thank you. Next one, Councillor Brenton, contact Bideford Children's Centre about feedback in terms of childcare provision and the impact of reported childcare crisis locally. And I think this will come back later in our questions.
Right, okay, because in fact, I did hand this over to the other Councillor Brenton, because he's the Torridge member on Ebald, and they haven't met yet. So
okay, we'll leave that one on there then. Next one, invite Petrock to attend and discuss apprenticeships and university status while you're here. So I think we can say that one's completed. The next one, I'm afraid I haven't investigated it yet. That was looking at the gender equality and take-up of apprenticeships in Torridge. So I'll leave that one on there. And an update on the Makers map. Christopher, we'll leave that one on there. I think that was something that he was working on and it's not complete yet anyway. And these were just items that came out of the minutes of a previous meeting. Consider the future of the Chamber of Commerce locally. So keep that one on there. It's just sort of as a reminder, really. Licensing committee chair to be invited to future CSP meetings.
I can follow that up with Holger, but I haven't done that yet, so I can do progress.
The next one, that was about a question which was included to Stagecoach, and the following one was again about the bite-sized training with the police. So I think Phil Gilbert's going to send out an email to all councillors to find out the topics that they'd like to get training on, like county lines and that type of thing. Right, sorry, that took quite a while.
Chair, can
Councillor
we
Benton?
add anything now to the list, or would it be inappropriate at this stage?
What would you like to add?
Well, I would like to add that we approach Royal Mail in Bideford to
Oh, that
find
would
out
be
what's-
urgent matters. Shall I bring that up under urgent matters?
Yes, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be fine. Yeah.
Declarations of interest. Members with interest should refer to the agenda item and describe the nature of their interest when the item is considered. Agreement of agenda items part 1 and 2. There is no part 2. A reminder that this is all open to the public and hopefully recorded on YouTube. Councillor Pennington?
Just to declare that my son works at North Devon,
Thank
North
you.
Devon Petrock College, shows how old I am, unfortunately.
Thank you, Councillor Pennington. Urgent matters brought forward with permission of the Chair. Councillor Brenton.
Right, thank you, Chair. Well, I don't know whether this is an urgent matter or not, but it certainly is very problematic, and that is that we're getting many complaints from people about the mail being delivered very, very inconsistently or not at all around the Bideford area. I mean, it made me laugh to hear all this stuff on questions to the Prime Minister about the mail and how they're going to insist on having the 6-day delivery. Because most people in our area, and that's only up the road in Medden Street and Clovelly Road and Torridge Hill, we only get one delivery a week. That's all, if that. And, you know, it's ridiculous what's going on. Lots of people have magazines that they don't get delivered. I happen to take the Radio Times because I'm so old. And you know, obviously it's a time-sensitive magazine. If you don't get it until the week after it's supposed to be delivered, you may as well not get it at all. But seriously, I know several residents who've had letters that have come from the hospital about appointments, and they haven't received them until it was too late, and they haven't been able to get back to the hospital to say I'm not coming because they didn't know that they were supposed to be there. And obviously they get a do not attend black mark on their notes. And I know that because I used to be on the trust board. And obviously those mount up if people do it more than once. So I think this is a really serious problem for Bideford. I don't know how widespread it is across the rest of Torridge, but it's certainly, and it's ridiculous in our urban area that they're having this problem. There's issues with the vehicles they're using, apparently. Half of them are so old that they are breaking down all the time. But the point is the postal service in Bideford itself is a pedestrian delivery on the whole of letters. And so I do think we need to ask them in to find out, A, what the problem is, why it's happening, and what they can do about it for our residents.
I would just add, it's not just the urban areas, because in the rural areas we've got the same problems, and with the mobile post offices, they're becoming increasingly unreliable, and I'm getting complaints of that from the rural areas. So it's widespread across the whole of Torridge.
Yeah.
So, Councillor Craigie, you were first. Do you want to speak?
Yeah, I was just going to confirm in Easterwater it is fairly similar as well. Some areas are down to, they say, once a fortnight, Eastridge. So it is something that I've had plenty of residents complain about. And also mail going missing as well, which may be down to the fact that it's being so infrequently delivered that it's being lost at some point. So there are, I think, important questions to ask on that, so I would definitely think that we should do that.
Councillor Pennington?
Yeah, following up on Councillor Brenton, Post is obviously struggling, and it's interesting when we do see this postman. Very nice to see him or her. Thank you very much indeed. But it also reveals, because you talked about patients not getting their letters, and everything now seems to be going towards digital and computer appointments. It was mentioned at our last full council when the people from Royal Devon Exeter came and presented at full council, and it's all about patient initiative follow-up, and it's relying on the patient to follow up. And there is now a fall-off of people who are not able to use modern communication and now not getting letters as well. And there is, when I map out the gap of communication, it's not only the post office, but there's a whole group of people now who cannot access medical or doctor or anything else. So there's a double side here, and I hope that external ONS will follow up. I was a little bit disappointed that we did the hospitals at full council, because it needs more than what we did at full council. Absolutely, when we seem not to be holding to account, particularly as now integrated, North Devon is now integrated with the Royal Devon and Exeter, and there's a lot of questions to be asked, and we as a don't seem to be asking them. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. So, are you proposing that we
I propose that we invite Royal Mail to come to a convenient meeting in the near future to explain what's happening with the Royal Mail postal service in Torridge.
Yeah, I'll second that. Everyone in favour? I don't know if we have to do a vote on that.
I was going to say that it's been on the news and it's been on Radio 4 a lot about the post office, not just the after the TV programme about it, but the post office has to get themselves house in order, and they are working hard. So I mean, I don't think you'll get anything from them because they're working hard trying to get it sorted.
Chair, point of information, the stuff on the TV was about post office counters.
There's other things going on in the world apart from that, and I've been listening to it on Radio 4 and on Radio 5 Live, and they are having a big working out whether they deliver 5 days or 6, working out whether they can cut that back to 3. So I mean they have to find out that they are struggling as a business, and they've got to remap their model.
And they've been removing post boxes as well. There's one at the bottom of my mum's lane, and that's been removed, not being replaced.
And the point of your comment is, Councillor Hawkins?
Sorry?
What the point of your comment is, Councillor?
Well, I'm just saying that you're talking about it, and before you got to the vote, I was going to say it is very popular at the moment, and I do think you'll have some answers that you want to get, but I don't think you'll get them at the moment because they're still in consultation.
Councillor Craigie?
Well, I just wanted to pull up the fact that the Royal Mail and the Post Office are two separate organisations.
Post office counters are completely different.
And obviously you talk about
I'm talking about the Royal Mail letter delivery service.
Yeah, Councillor Brenton's talking about the Royal Mail, but your point about the mobile counters is the Post Office.
Counters.
And I'm more than welcome to second that proposal as well, that we talk to them about that, because obviously in the public mind the two are very, very connected, and they have been for a long time. So I think it would be helpful to
contact both.
Yeah.
About the issues. Do we need to vote on that? Yeah. All in favour? Against? Abstentions? No abstentions.
Can I ask
Councillor Pennington.
before we move on?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. It's the issue of universal delivery, which is, I think, is the charter of the post office that is up for discussion at the present moment. It costs them an awful lot of money, particularly as much of their work has now gone by email communication. And there is a challenge for them, absolutely, to that. And I think that the rural areas will lose out more than any other area. And we are rural even in our urban centres here in Torridge. And we need to make sure we're protecting those. And I don't think we're going far enough here. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Someone contacted me recently about the Discovery Centre. So it's at Pathfield School, which isn't in Torridge, but the resident who contacted me lives in Torridge and her son goes to the Discovery Centre. So I think it is appropriate that it's brought up here. So she said she's happy for me to read this out. She said, I thought I would message to see if you knew that the Discovery Centre in Barnstaple have announced they are closing next year. This is a unit under Pathfield School for SEND children. There are currently 700 children in Devon that don't have a suitable SEN school to go to. Devon County Council are saying this is a decision by Pathfields, and Pathfields are saying it's because Devon County Council won't help fund it, and the building rented privately needs expensive external work doing to it, and apparently there is a clause in the contract making the school responsible for the external work. Any thoughts or ideas on where to go with this? The school are having a consultation but have already told the kids it's closing. They are proposing either finding new placements, but there aren't any, or the remaining children using a library or small classroom in Pathfield School, which in my understanding isn't big enough to swing a cat, let alone teach the 11 remaining kids that will be left by the time it closes. So that's something that I wasn't aware of until I received this message. So I said that I'd bring it up tonight to make councillors aware. And my proposal would be that we contact Pathfields and Devon County to find out more information on what's happening, because I don't know any of the details behind it.
Well, I second that, because definitely some of our residents will be using that centre.
Yeah, because obviously Pathfields, it's in North Devon, but it does cover the Torridge area as well, the students that go there. So,
Can you just confirm the seconder? Sorry.
seconded
Councillor
it.
Brenton. Do we need to vote on that? All in favour? Unanimous. That's brilliant. Thank you. And another one, I know that it's already been raised when Westwood Housing attended our full council meeting, but another resident contacted me with concern that they want to remove her wood-burning stove and replace it with storage heaters, and she is really quite upset about that. And storage heaters are expensive to run, and it's the most vulnerable people being affected. I know we had a response from Westwood Housing, but maybe whether this committee again raise concerns over that. I've told this lady that I would bring it up tonight under urgent matters. Councillor Craigie?
If I recall correctly, at the full council, when they addressed and this issue of the wood burning was talked about, they did say that they would come back to it on that. So perhaps it's a question of following up whether they have come back to us.
Yeah, I did see an email come back. I thought that was to all councillors, but maybe it wasn't. In response to Councillor Hackett, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was just going to say, actually, Chair, Councillor Hackett has raised similar concerns, so he spoke to me afterwards and said that he was going to raise it with Westwood. I don't know if he already has. He may have done. I mean, there's no difficulty of this committee asking, but I know specifically because he didn't agree with some of what was said. So he'd raised that with me.
So it would be better if it was done on a case-by-case basis, because it looks to me like it's a policy which...
It's a blanket one, really.
Yeah, like a blanket policy. They're just going to remove them all without any question. So could put that as another action, that we contact Westwood again. Do we need to vote on it or not? No? Okay, good. Right. Really sorry about that, Sean and Bill. Now on to the main bit of the meeting. the opportunity to hear from Sean Mackney, Principal and CEO of Petrock, and Bill Blythe, the Vice Principal, Finance Resources and Regional Affairs at Petrock. Welcome, thank you. Over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Chair, I just, how long do you want to spend on this item? Because there's a lot of questions which we're really happy to do with some really interesting set of questions there. We can address the specifics around the university plans and the work around apprenticeships. But I don't know whether you want to start with a bit of an introduction about
yeah, I'm
college
happy
strategy and how
to
it
follow
fits.
your lead, and if you maybe introduce yourselves and give us a bit of an introduction and then see how it follows. We've got, like you say, a long list of questions.
Actually, I've got one as well, I haven't submitted.
Okay.
Okay, in which case, thank you for the invitation again to the committee. It seems an awfully long time ago, but of course we had that weird, that we came the last time, and we had that strange kind of COVID, the lost years in between. So I'm Sean Mackney, Principal and Chief Executive, and
Bill Blythe, Vice Principal, Finance Resources and Regional Affairs.
And the Regional Affairs piece in Bill's portfolio as part of our executive team is an important recent development since the last time we came to the committee, actually, that we are seeing so much development at a regional level, agendas around devolution, but the importance of partnership between ourselves and the districts and the councils, that regional affairs agenda is a growing one for us as a college. It's a growing one for colleges more generally, and so it reflects a major part of what Bill's role is within the executive team. I thought I'd say something briefly about the college strategy, and then talk about partnership as our way forward, talk about the economy and the importance of that and how we see ourselves as playing a part in that, and then perhaps talk then about the University for Northern Devon and the development plans for that. Does that sound okay?
Yep, great, thank you.
Good, thank you. So, briefly, college strategy. Our mission as a college, our current strategy runs to 2025, is to produce excellence through learning. That is both our challenge to ourselves about what we want to, the standards that we hold ourselves to account in, but also the way that through working with employers, through working with learners and with partners, that we can help them to develop excellence in their work as well. So we have 5 strategic aims. The first of these is producing outstanding learner achievement. Central to every learner that works with us is that they want to do very well in the qualifications that they study, and that very often that will open doors for them and allow them to progress to the next stage of their development. And so we have, as you would expect, a range of quality systems and processes to drive that quality improvement throughout the college. Our second strategic aim, and is really the reason why I think all of the staff at the college get out of bed in the morning, it's about improving the life chances and employment prospects of the learners that we work with. And so it's all very well having qualifications, but if they don't get you anywhere, and if they don't provide you with the grounding to be a happy, prosperous and an engaged citizen, because that is explicitly part of our agenda at the college, then that's, we haven't done our job properly. And we know also that it isn't all about just the qualifications, that we need to develop in our students the social and cultural capital, the skills, the networks, the interests that are all around the courses that we do, which is why for us it's really important that we have a big programme of enrichment. We have sports academies, we have our football academies linked to Chelsea Football Club, for instance. We have academic academies that are part of developing the skills. We had a group of students working with some retired engineers that built and sold an aeroplane from our campus as part of their enrichment programme. And we have, again, explicitly as part of what developing those life chances are, looking outside of our region here and making sure that internationalism and the connection with other parts of the world is what our learners are able to do. We did that extensively. There's questions in here. We did it extensively under Erasmus, which is the European programme that existed to do this. We would typically send 200 learners a year to do work placements in other parts of Europe. So we had motor mechanics in Barcelona, we had chefs in Sweden. Under the Turing programme, which is the government's new programme, we again have a programme of opportunities there that builds on that. So we're still using some of those existing connections, but this year we've got a group going to Japan, we're going to Morocco, we're going to Malawi. So we're looking to extend those links so that with that, our students and the staff that go can create international partnerships that help with what we're trying to do here in Northern Devon. And that focus on employment, regardless of the programme that a student might do or a learner is doing, is there in every programme. So clearly, if you're an apprentice, you're already employed. Your identity is as an employee, and you're coming and doing some work with us. But it's the same for whether you're on a vocational programme, a T-level, which are really strong and well-focused applied programmes, or indeed on our A-level programmes as well. Some of those students might not be going into the labour market for another 5 years, but it's still saying, okay, well, what choices do you want to make from here to get there? If you want to be a medic, that's a long way off, but which universities do you want to go to get you there? Our third part of our mission is about building communities and supporting the development of communities that we live in. Previously, the college has had we did work in London and in Bristol. And we were doing work all over the country. We were kind of doing dementia care in Middlesbrough on a distance learning basis. But we've said we're about focusing all of our efforts on supporting the placemaking and the communities within Northern Devon and Mid Devon, which is where we have campuses. And so a major part of the work that we do, and I'll say, when I said I'll talk about partnership, goes in that, and it's a vital way of the way that we can achieve what we're about. It isn't enough for us, though, to just create learners who have the skills and the qualifications. We know in our community that we need to create more businesses that are innovating, that are highly productive, because those are the businesses that will be both growing and creating highly paid job opportunities for our young people coming through, and indeed for the adults that live in our community. And so we have a role explicitly as part of our strategy, and this is an area that Bill leads on, to support businesses in developing their innovation, their productivity, and to create new businesses and entrepreneurs. We have centres both in Mid Devon, which we're building at the moment, and we've had an established centre in our Barnstable campus. And the final and crucially important part of our strategy, our fifth aim, is tackling the climate emergency. And we do that both through our practice as an organisation. So one of the things that we are just about to start the actual construction work on is a project that will reduce our gas consumption by about 98%. It's a major initiative. We managed to secure £5 million for decarbonisation fund from government. It will transform both our campuses using air source heat pumps and a major solar development across our campus. But more important than our practice as an organisation is how we're able to get into our study programmes for our students an understanding about what the climate emergency is, an understanding of sustainable development and the principles of that, and so that our learners that have worked with us go out into the world and are able to, as they're leading and managing in businesses or organisations are able to take that understanding and tackle that more widely, because they will have a much bigger impact than we will do on our own. So that's broadly our strategy. Happy to talk about it. We're just over halfway through. We've got about 18 months to run on that. So we will shortly, from September later of this year, be engaging in preparing for our next strategy through to 2030 or even 2035. And that's a process that we will want to do with all of our partners, with yourselves, with our parents, our learners, our staff, and other stakeholders in what's the world going to be like, and what is a successful college providing into that world that we might be looking at. So, talking a bit more about partnership, I said that it's really important to us. We work really closely with the officers and indeed leader at Torridge District Council and indeed with North Devon District Council, amongst other partners and stakeholders. We couldn't do what we do as a college if we weren't working closely with employers, with organisations, with schools, with community groups, and with, I said, the democratic bodies within our area. We, together with the councils, have invested time in forming the systems leader group across the whole of Northern Devon, which I'm sure you have spoken about before, Northern Devon Futures. And that's a group that says, well, the sorts of challenges that we face, the sorts of things we're trying to achieve, are what people would describe as wicked problems. And wicked problems require these kind of multi-agency partnerships to work together to get more value than we would get from working together. And we from the college have put effort into that, helping that. I'm really pleased working with the three organisations to further that. But you have you have politicians there, you have I say major employers, you have the health service. We have a group there forming around children and young people to say some of the things you've already come up on your agenda. How do we tackle those things together? Specifically within education, we work with all of the secondary schools and indeed a number of the primary schools now, as we're starting to that reach back, being really important to a younger age for young people to recognise the opportunities that are going to exist here and the sorts of choices they need to make. But I work with secondary schools. We provide the secretariat to what's called Education Futures North Devon, which is across the whole of Northern Devon, the secondary schools where they come together, the head teachers meet, but there are also themed groups around curriculum, around behaviour, around attendance, and around professional development. So we see that as really important, not just because the education that goes, the young people that are educated in schools are going to be arriving at the college, and if they haven't been able to succeed at school, then it's a different job that we will have to do with them. But the better we're able to prepare those young learners in the schools through that partnership of working together, the better we'll be able to get them further through their education when they're working with us. So I say partnership as the way that we work is an important thing for us, and we welcome any feedback that we get about our effectiveness in doing that. I think the biggest thing, I think, was it Bill Clinton who said it's the economy stupid, as when you say what's the thing that's going to drive and make a big difference for everybody's lives. And we know that our economy is challenged in Northern Devon, and particularly in some areas of Torridge, we have some real areas of deprivation. And that's something that we are very alert to. It's why we are looking to support those businesses who are creating those employment opportunities, but also for us responding to what I think is the most exciting and potentially transformational thing that will happen within Northern Devon in a generation, which will be that new marine blue-green economy and floating offshore wind. Now, so we are proud to be a partner with the Torridge District Council led Marine Innovation Centre and working with the University of Exeter and the University of Plymouth as part of that. From our perspective, we see the major hub for those developments being around that centre, and so all of those organisations from across Northern Devon and indeed from across the country will gravitate there. And so as we as a college look to see, well, what are the skills needs of this growing this growing thing in floating offshore wind and in aquaculture, how do we make sure we're providing them? How can we make sure that as that sector takes off, we're there with the people? Now, one of the ways we did that, and it actually happened today, we had the launch of the Northern Devon Marine Cluster. So we had 80 businesses came to the college this morning, all talking about how can we work together, how can we advance in Northern Devon rather than these things being done perhaps in South Wales. How can we make this the locus of the taking advantage of the Celtic Sea? And how does our presence in the biosphere, which is unique, within the country, how does that enable us to go further and say this is the place that you need to come to? But some of the numbers there are really eye-watering. And they're saying for every gigawatt of electricity that's generated in flow, you need 300 welders. And where do you get 300 welders from? So that's where we're thinking, right, that's coming. We've already got Harland and Wolff, who we provide all of their apprentices, building their apprenticeship numbers. We had they've grown year on year for the past 3 years with us, and we're saying, right, where are you going now? How's your business changing? What are we doing? We would like to see a physical presence for us around this agenda based in that location, because I think it's it will be the best place for us to have specialist provision related to floating offshore wind here in Torridge. If I finish, then say something about the University for Northern Devon. This is an important development for us. I think I said the last time I came to the committee, the college has been delivering higher education for 30 years. Not a lot of people have known about that necessarily a lot of that time, but when we look at the opportunities that it provides for people across their lifetime, and when we look at the businesses and the sorts of jobs that they're creating, we hear a lot about artificial intelligence and about automation and the things that, and on the whole, they wipe out lower skilled jobs and they create new types of higher skilled jobs. So our agenda for our curriculum is to enable learners to go as far with their learning as possible. But it's also about having those higher level opportunities right here within Northern Devon, so that we both retain that talent that we've got, but also create an environment that attracts talent from elsewhere and says, this is a great place to develop your career. This isn't a place that you're just going to come because you've been productive somewhere else in the country and this is, I want to retire perhaps later, or perhaps I want to raise my children here. This is a place that is really going to be the place to develop your career. Now, I've worked in the university sector all my career up until working at Petroc, and I've seen a number of occasions where universities have an outreach kind of thing off somewhere, and then the management changes, and they go, I don't think, well, why are we doing that, they say, and we're not going to do that anymore. And so you see areas that kind of come and go with the whim of the major the major university they're working with. Swindon's an example of that. So what we are determined to do is to create the University for Northern Devon, and it's our university here. So it's not subject to the whims of other organisations, but about something that we grow organically as being part of Northern Devon. We're starting that by creating the identity of the centre and the connection with place here. We will be rebranding our University Centre as the University Centre for Northern Devon, which will be coming soon. our marketing people will probably tell me off for telling everybody publicly today that this is coming. But that is the first step on a journey which is probably a 9-year journey, I would say, for us here in Northern Devon, and one which can only be done through the sorts of strong partnership that I've been talking about. We know what the stages are. We'll be able to monitor those. You get taught degree awarding powers at level 5. You get taught degree awarding powers at level 6, which is bachelor's level, and then you get the title of university. You're not allowed to use the title university on its own without getting formal approval. So that's the journey that we're on. The focus of it for us is around 3 clustered areas. It's around that blue-green economy and marine. It is about health and care, and it is also about, I knew I was going to forget the third one, that's terrible. It's about advanced engineering, and that as the ground point, which within that we have that sustainability and that focus there on the opportunities that come with the biosphere. Now we've got what we're doing is developing programs that fit within those clusters, that meet those future needs, both of how we take advantage of the opportunity to learn in a biosphere. You can't do that anywhere else. We want to say, well, how can we do that and bring people from perhaps from other parts of the country to say, we're not going to be an enormous 30,000 learner university, but there are some really special things that you can do here in Northern Devon. Let's play on those strengths that we have as a location, and make sure that we can support people to learn at a higher level. We know there's a big difference for our adult population in Torridge, particularly where it's 23% of the population have qualifications at level 4 or above. You only have to go down the train line to Exeter and it goes to 58%. And so that's something I think if we grow our own, we support all adults with their learning as well. This isn't just young people coming through, then all of us will be better equipped to take advantage of those higher skilled jobs that are going to be coming over the hill or across the sea for us, and that we'll be able to create a more prosperous future for all of us here. So shall I pause there, and then happy to deal with questions either about that or about the questions that have been posed as you see fit. Chair.
Okay. Has anyone got any questions from that introduction that we've had? Yeah, Councillor Bark. Can you put your mic on?
Thank you for coming along this evening. It was a wonderful presentation, an exciting time to be in education, I think. If I can just ask for something for older people like myself. You mentioned about vocations and extra training and skills for older people. What opportunities are there? I know some people are at your college at the moment doing trade, education, plumbing and electrical work. But I know a lot of people who are retired would like to be involved more and take those opportunities. Thank you.
So if I could pick that up, Councillor. So I think we recognise that one of the, as a college sector and as Petroc, one of the areas that has not recovered fully post-COVID has been our adult education programme. And we are, with a member of my team leading, looking to completely redesign the way that we deliver programmes to the adult community in Torridge and North Devon, and also in Mid Devon through Tiverton, looking to ensure that we have a better, wider programme of evening classes, looking at weekend opportunities as well, and to ensure that, as Sean said, that we are at the front and centre of the community, whether that's for young people, those of working age, or those of older age looking for either social or recreational learning as well. We did have a very thriving adult programme going back probably 6-7 years ago. That was like most colleges, subject to a large number of very difficult funding cuts, which really put colleges on the back foot for that agenda. Just starting to build back and have new government funding for our adult programmes. So we will be looking over the next 2 to 3 months to be consulting quite widely with the community over what those programmes should look like, when they need to be delivered. What I would say is, like most organisations, we are demand-led. So we need numbers. So we will need to start with popular programmes and then look to build out for those. But it is a crying shame that our adult programme has withered. The college is committed to growing that back and growing that back quickly. So we will be talking more broadly around that in the near future, and would welcome your views.
I think if we can, it's about making learning a social experience, not just a thing that you kind of rack up and pick up bits of paper for. That once you get that into the habit of it, you're going on and meeting your friends, your family knows that evening or that Saturday morning or whatever it is, that's when you go off to the college to do some stuff. You're having a nice cup of coffee and a pastry, chatting with your mates, you're learning some things that's keeping your mind active, getting you some of the skills that you need, but it's about experience. That's that. I think it's some of that repackaging that Kim, Bill's colleague, has been talking about. And I was at a session last week with a future economist who was talking about the ageing population and the notion that you get to 60 and that's kind of largely it, and you go back 50 years, it was you retired then because you weren't going to last many years longer. They said we should be preparing for living to 100. So when we're thinking about our people who are 60, what do they want to do? What jobs do they want to do? Do they want to do jobs? What's going to keep them interested and engaged? We need to be really rethinking that off of older adults.
Councillor Harding?
Yeah, thanks. It's great that you've got great enthusiasm over that. I was lucky enough to do a couple of courses up at your college, and Chef Williams was a great, enthusiastic person that really, saw potential and honed it. Are you managing to get enough staff with that kind of, enthusiasm and because I do hear that there's 9 times out of 10 the teachers don't turn up, and and the kids are getting fed up with it, and it's not like my day, but I was just wondering, how do you retain people that are good, and how do you bring new blood in, and can you get them to come to this neck of the woods, because it's a long way away.
I think that links to what our public speaker said as well, isn't it, about the teacher absences and the impact that that's having on their learning. Yes, please.
But, it's interesting. We had one of the things that we do at the college, whenever people from government departments at the centre say, could we come out and look at a college? We say, yeah, come and look at our college. So we've had one of those with us for the last couple of days, and I just had to catch up with her, and she said, I said, what's it been like? Have you? Because we let them loose and they go out and talk to whoever they want to. And she said, I've been really impressed by the passion of the people that I've worked with. And so I thought, well, that's great to hear. But and it's picking up the point about teacher absences. The vast majority of our programmes and the vast majority of our staff are there, and we're able to cover the full range of what we're doing. That isn't to say that there aren't challenges in both attracting and retaining staff, and I'm on national groups with colleges that are facing this, but I think what we experience, and we've talked about this in the Northern Devon Futures Economy Group, you're right, getting people to come here is a real challenge. It's exacerbated by things like, can you find housing that's affordable to live in? And if you're living at a distance, is public transport going to be good enough to get you to where you're going to? So that can be a challenge in a number of places. We're also, government is now recognising that the college sector salaries for staff need to be competitive, both to attract great people from vocational occupations and trades to train the next generation of people, but also need to be competitive with schools, because otherwise they come out of schools and then there's no way for them to go. So what we do in relation to looking to attract and retain staff, we're having to try and be more innovative in terms of that. So we have golden hellos for new staff to hold them in. We give our own staff bonuses if they manage to recruit somebody through their networks. We have sessions to recruit people as associates who want to be close to the college and may want to do it a bit and maybe move into it in future. And we've got programs about growing our own, having our own apprentices who will become the educators of the future. But in a couple of areas, and trying to draw attention to one of those areas, we've had some, this year had some real difficulties, and that was in terms of the law A-level provision. We've had difficulty in law, and we've had a difficulty in electrical engineering. It's been the major ones, where electrical engineers are like gold dust to get. So if you know any that want to come and lecture, that would be fantastic. Well, this is, you know, and that's one of the traits. So it's like, how do you help structure it for them? So, and I was sorry to hear, Trinity, that you haven't been kept informed. I had spoken with Rachel, who's the director of studies, and Sarah, who leads that curriculum area, and I thought they had done. I will take that back and ask them to provide a further update for students in the area. But on the specifics of getting a law lecturer in place, we are interviewing next week, I think. I have met at least one candidate who on paper looks fantastic. We have been out for interview to recruit and we haven't necessarily appointed people. We've got, because as I say, I met them earlier in the week, somebody who wants to make the move in as a qualified teacher, and I thought on paper looked good. So I think we will have somebody in place as quickly as we're able to. When they're in place, we will provide those further extra sessions for reinforcement to make sure that you and everybody else fulfills your potential and gets as much learning as possible, because it has. I really feel for you, because it's having that disruption with the lecture that we had that started, and then you had leave, and then that kind of mix. I mean, you know, it hasn't been a good experience. So I'm sorry about that. We have a parent forum as well as the college, where open forum to talk to parents, and it was one of the first things that we wanted to raise with parents, because in those areas, again, you want to know what are we doing about it and how can we tackle it. It's something that through these measures, and we're looking at, can we work our networks even better, and how can we use our parents' networks, perhaps, and the networks of our partners, because they say you're within 6 connections of everybody in the world. So if we can use those better, I'm sure that there are people with the right sort of skills who would be interested in teaching and would be providing a good quality education. So does that address that?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Pennington.
Thank you. If a student is concerned about what's happening, is there a pathway that they can raise their concerns without having to come outside the school, and they know where that pathway is, because it's their life, and foundation years are really, really important, and they only get one shot at it. We are where we are, and there's not much left, but they've got a long time to go. And I just wonder if there's a pathway that students know in the situation that they can follow if they have concerns that are happening without coming outside the college.
Yeah, so Councillor Pennington, we have student engagement panels for each of our courses and areas. We have student fora. We have 2 student governors who report to and are full members of our board, who are able to raise those sort of concerns We have a student union who we meet with regularly, who raise issues, and through the faculty structure that we've got, every student will have a faculty manager and a faculty director. We then meet as an executive team with those faculty directors on a weekly basis and are looking at student feedback, student concerns, and we have a programme of You Said, We Did, looking at what students have raised and what we're seeking to do about them. There are some thorny large problems, the law lecturer being one, and lecturer recruitment and lecturer retention is a general issue for colleges and for schools and indeed for businesses. And as Sean said, we had about 80 businesses in the college today, and I would say that most of them raised with us the difficulty of recruiting qualified and retaining qualified staff. So we're not alone in that, but you're absolutely right, it does cause issues at a very important stage for our young people.
And I know this from the other end, in this, because I happen to live in Exeter, about half a mile from Exeter College. My daughter's in the second year of her A-levels. They've had difficulty sourcing one of those A-level stuff, and so they've been in enormous groups with people who say they can only teach part of it because they don't know the other part of it. And so it's a challenge that we're all facing, and what we're all trying to do, and because ourselves, Exeter, everywhere that is facing this, is to make sure that we can provide the very best education that we can in those circumstances.
Thank you. Councillor Pennington.
Another tackle together. 2011 ONS census, the average age for Torridge population was 47. 2021, it's 51, so we've got 4 years older as an average between the two censuses. We had questions earlier on about digital exclusions and the post office, and we've gone away from Royal Mail to a lot of people who are in the countryside who are excluded digitally. Is there any courses or anything that we can aim towards the elder population so that they feel more included? We had a talk at full council from the health services about patient initiative follow-up, which is electronically based. And I'm really concerned that we need some form of education. Do you do anything in that direction that meets the ageing population? I see your second was health and social care, and it's got to start with yourself these days, because if you don't, you know, and it seems to me when you ring your doctor, you've got to say to your doctor you're dying, because then you get an appointment, which is the way you have to seem to run with the situation. So, I mean, I wonder if there's any training for particularly reflective of our population to meet the changing world that we live in.
Yes, I mean, again, we can do more and we will do more, but the Adult Basic Skills programme that we've been running, including basic computing, literacy, numeracy, those sort of programmes have been well taken up. It's very difficult to engage with some of those communities because so much of our communication as the health service is reliant on our ability to get people to have knowledge of the programs that are operating. And it sounds crazy, but quite often you kind of put on the advert for a digital awareness course by social media, which of course is completely counterintuitive because those are the groups that are most unlikely to achieve that. So what we're looking at through our adult review is very much across all layers and all levels of programs. So whether it's higher level skills through something like a dreadfully named in my view skills boot camp around health and social care, which we're running and are quite successful short single term intervention support programs to upskill people that are in the health and social care sector or looking to be in that, through to things like what used to be known as the European Computer Driving Licence, which is really the basics of how do you operate, how would you get onto the web, etc. We also work quite closely with Learn Devon, and as you know, Learn Devon have a centre up near the old post office where they're running a lot of those sort of adult skills programs. So we're looking to make sure that we complement rather than compete with Royal Devon on those sort of programs.
Thank you. Councillor Craigie.
Thank you. It's been quite interesting to hear of all the things that have been going on. As chair of Northern Devon Food Bank, it strikes me that there's also a lot of important education work to do in the third sector.
If I start off and then you can follow up. So on the third sector, yeah, I think there's some great opportunities there for us, and we see ourselves as a college, it being important to the values that we have as an organisation. So one of the things that we've introduced this year is that we are providing all of our staff with the opportunity to have a paid day where they go and volunteer in the local community. Now you might say, well, it's just a day, but of course they're unlikely, once they make a connection with a voluntary organisation, for that to be the only connection that they have. And we see it as a chance for us to take teams of people who might want to work together. In order to make that connection, we brought in, and we're working with the voluntary services organisations across Northern Devon to find those opportunities, and they indeed also ran sessions for us to help recruit young people into the volunteer sector. That's not quite answering your question, because it's then they've got skills needs of people who are volunteers, but it's about that question of how do we raise awareness with people. And I think if people are not using digital means and we're not reaching them through that, then it is the word of mouth and the connections and partnership that says if everybody knows, Petroc's got a programme of those 6 things, all of those, they'll be covered. You know, this is the person you speak to, which is where we need to get to, I think. Mental health and well-being. We have seen a significant increase in learners reporting difficulty with their mental health, particularly post-COVID. Our response has been to increase the size of our safeguarding and our well-being team. So we have 2 teams managed by the same manager, and so that's about helping learners with early interventions on the well-being side and monitoring issues that they may have. And on the safeguarding side is the more serious areas where they may be in a risk of critical self-harm, and so we provide higher levels of support for those. We have a college counsellor, as in a professional counsellor, that provides the more intensive programmes of counselling sessions for those learners amongst the triaged approach of interventions. We do find, because of the pressures in other services, that as reported, that GPs are referring young people to go to college because they say they'll get support from the safeguarding team. That's a challenge for us, obviously, because of the scale of that, but one that is so important to meet, because if you're not healthy, then you're not in a position to learn. In terms of neurodivergence, one of the things that we do very well as a college across both of our sites is support learners with special educational needs, both within specialist provision within our progressive studies faculty, but also across the rest of the college. We have an approach, we have a number of pods where learners that may get overwhelmed by the noise or bustle of their major class can just go to that pod. There'll be a member of staff in there who they know. It's calmer. They can take their work sent there and they can carry on with their studies. We have a significantly high proportion of our students that have special education needs and study with us than the average college, and that's because we're a popular choice for parents and young people in coming to a place that's going to support them as a community, as an inclusive approach in our learning in the way that we can be. We still think we've got some more to do there. We want to make sure that we can be personalising to an even greater extent the support we provide, and that's where some of the digital tools come in as well for our educators. We've just, for example, invested in an artificial intelligence package to help staff with lesson planning, to help create examples and case studies that will be attuned to the learners that they've got in the room with them to try and get to that higher quality support. But it's certainly something that's high on our agenda.
I think it's also just worth reflecting in terms of engagement with the voluntary sector. The Northern Devon Futures has a group dedicated to communities and place. It's chaired by the Chief Exec of North Devon Voluntary Services, Marie Gould, whose role within Northern Devon Futures is to hold the rest of the partnership to account for what we are doing to support the needs of volunteers. And building on Sean's point about the college and volunteering, it's also something that we encourage all our senior team to do in the community. For my sins, I'm a trustee on SS Fresh Spring and on a different level, Barnstaple Chamber of Commerce. And all my colleagues at executive and senior management level would be able to sit here and say, yes, and I'm a governor at a school or on a multi-academy trust board or whatever. So it's something that we really do encourage as a college to ensure that we are properly engaged in the local community and can reflect that in the way that we think and work within the college. At least, I hope we do.
Councillor Benton.
Thank you. This is a question about A-levels, really, and I'm bearing in mind the problems you're having with some kinds of recruitment. But what sort of range is there of A-levels at the college? I ask this because my granddaughter's just considering where she's going for her A-levels, and she lives in Torrington. My grandson's gone down to Exeter College because he is doing his A-levels, because he couldn't find the right spectrum of A-levels locally here, obviously at Bideford College or even at Petrock. Is there any liaison between, say, Bideford College and you, so that you can, between you, provide a broader range for young people so that they can have the same opportunities you'd have, say, in London, where there's a myriad of colleges providing heaven knows how many different A-levels. So is something that you can do about that? Because it does seem that a waste of young people's potential if they can't take up, when they have a skill and an interest in a particular area, that at A-level, just because that particular type of education opportunity isn't there.
Yeah, no, sorry. To start with, to answer your question, yes, in terms of our A-level provision, I think we have 23 different A-levels across the full spectrum of creative sciences, humanities, classics. So I think there is a broader, but it won't be. We won't have every single A level necessarily, but we do have a wide range. I think your point about how might we provide more through partnership, I think is a really good one. One of the things that we've spoken about as an educational community in the schools group has been modern foreign languages, where both the schools and indeed at the college, we have struggled to keep the numbers in something that's really important to, I think, to keep alive, you know, in our community. So I would hope in that as an example, as the kind of first one, that we will find a way, and we haven't done this yet, but to have some form of cooperation so that we can make sure that we have viable groups to keep those that even greater breadth of provision that you describe in Northern Devon. One of the other things that we are planning to do as part of a project that meets the needs of the Local Skills Improvement Plan, which we now are required to respond to. It's a published document led by employers that says these are the needs of skills needs of the local sector. Is we have a programme that looks to collaborate with other colleges around a digital and kind of virtual collaboration, because again, for some subjects, it would be possible for learners to learn those digitally and in groups that might involve teaching staff from other colleges in other parts of the country. So that's both in the sort of things that we've become familiar with in terms of Zoom, but also doing it actually in a metaverse environment, so that you learn in virtual environments, which we and others are experimenting with at the moment as part of our education. So getting that breadth is really valuable. I think coming together to get critical mass, so across Northern Devon, we say, how do we maximise the range? And I think there are also other benefits that come from that, about allowing teachers to teach at a higher level at the college, for them to see and have connections with our university centre staff who will have doctorates and masters qualifications in the relevant disciplines, and share that kind of resource around a bit more widely.
It just seems that in my grandson's case, there were duplications between Petrock and Bideford College, but not for the things that he wanted to do. So he had to go all the way down to Exeter College, and it seems a bit a shame that that should have to happen. And I take your point on the digital learning, but I think COVID has shown us that although it has some great strengths and can be a support, I'm not suggesting that all your students should sit at the feet of Sophocles, but I do think that, you know, actual real people giving real lectures has been proved by the COVID experience that actually that is the best way for students to learn and absorb what they need for their education. So I think it's got to go one way completely would be a bit of a mistake. So.
No, and I should say absolutely. What we look for is that face-to-face contact being a vital part of the total experience, but recognising that digital can provide the opportunity to learn anywhere to complement that core, and also for us to teach in ways that allows us to get more value from the time that we spend when we're all together physically. It's, you've probably heard people talk of the flipped classroom. So that's where you say, right, get the knowledge content by watching this kind of video or doing this virtual learning experience here. And then when we come together, we say, well, what did that mean? What do you think about it? And so you use the time to debate and develop those higher kind of order skills. But that blend is I think, the most effective one. Yeah. Important as well for apprentices. What we're finding with employers is they're saying, we don't necessarily want to be paying somebody for to travel to the college to do their off-the-job learning. Can't you provide some opportunities for them to do some of that off-the-job learning at the end of the day so that they can log on digitally, do something there? Because then I save myself 4 hours of labour time if they've got a 2-hour, travel to do it. And as we're looking at how do we remain competitive and offering what those employers are wanting, we're thinking we need to get more blended learning for those, because they're saying, well, that's what's going to fit around the busy lives of working people.
I think it's also, Chair, if I may, worth reflecting that alongside that, hopefully fairly broad programme of A-levels, we have also introduced 7 or 8 and growing number of T-levels, which are very much equivalent to 3 A-level programmes in the T stands for technical, so technical level programmes at that same academic and knowledge level as the A-level, so that you can now in a number of subjects, technical subjects, vocational subjects, pick up a qualification at that level that is very much validated by and supported by industry. And we're very proud of our T-level programmes, and the feedback from employers, many of whom have taken on a T-level student to do their work experience, is that those students are now working for them as full-time members of staff at the end of their programme. So as well as the A-level opportunities, there's the suite of T-levels that really complement that programme.
And those have really been a success in the first year of those. So nationally, 21% got distinctions or starred distinctions. At the college at Petrock, 38% got starred distinctions. Nationally, it was a 90% pass rate, and we had a 100% pass rate. And so we think there's really something in it. It has a minimum of 315 hours of work placement, so learning in a real employer. But it also has a strong kind of theoretical core, so that as the things that they need to learn, the knowledge content will change in future. They've got frameworks for understanding how to learn, and I think it's that application of kind of pulling knowledge to work that is the kind of the nice thing about them. They're not without their challenges, and I know there were some questions here which we can come to if we want to, but we think they're a good qualification for stretching learners and enabling them to fulfil their potential.
Yeah, that was actually one of the first questions. I think we've covered a lot of the questions already. Shall we quickly go through them? And then, a lot of them we've covered anyway. Yeah, and it wasn't just, I put something out on social media saying that you were coming today and asked for them to contact me with questions. So that's sort of where they've come from. So the first one was about T-levels, which you've just covered quite well, I think.
And the challenge for us in T-levels is, as we grow them, continuing to find employers who recognise the value of having somebody in on a work placement. I have to say, we are seeing from local employers a kind of change in their attitudes towards working with learners. That I think before it might have been a philanthropic thing that they did. I'll go and help out and have someone on work experience. Now, because they can't pop off to Germany or Bulgaria and do a recruitment trip and come back with well-qualified, bright-eyed staff, they recognise that it's a business imperative to be working in schools with us as a college. So, and T-levels are really at that heart of it. And where they work well, they add a lot of value for the employer as well as adding a lot of value for the young person. Transport.
Yeah, so transport is difficult. Devon County Council, as many councillors will know, took the decision, gosh, I'm feeling old now, I think it's 8 years ago now, to remove post-16 transport from their funded portfolio of services. We are therefore increasingly reliant upon Stagecoach to provide buses from rural areas. We have a very close working relationship with Stagecoach, but have to reflect that they have their business drivers, which are critical to them. But we also work very well with Devon County Council transport planners, and generally, not always, but generally we are able to ensure that we sustain routes from at least the majority of our area into Petrock. It is problematic because a lot of those buses are morning and afternoon services, term time only. We do provide support for learners to access those services, but there is a core gap which is from some of the hamlets and villages out to a main road to access those services, and again we work with Devon to try and achieve at least some coverage on those routes as well. There is a specific query on here about Northam. That has been problematic for a number of our students. There was particularly September and October a particular bus, I think it was about 7:15 bus, that was cancelled more often than it ran. That was largely due to driver shortages. That has improved. It's not as good as we would like it to be, and it's not as good as Stagecoach would like it to be. But wherever possible, we work with them to try and ensure coverage. If a service hasn't been able to run and students make us aware of that, then accepting that it's a second choice option, we do look then to provide digital support to those learners, ideally real-time digital support, so that they can pick up the lesson with their peers from home if possible. That's not always possible, but as I say, we continue to work with Stagecoach, and if you do have known issues in your wards, then we would welcome hearing about those.
I suppose a further thing just to say on transport, one of the things that, because it's so much of a challenge, you remember during COVID, double-decker buses would only take 10 people. And then one double-decker bus coming in to college, that was a real challenge for our learners when we were saying, we want you to come in. So we were saying, well, what other things might we have in a kind of integrated transport approach? Better train connection would be good. I think having the line back, as we've talked about, between Bideford and Barnstaple would be nice on trains. But we campaigned for the scooter trial as well, because we thought electric scooters would be a way, regulated electric scooters, not the ones that the illegal ones that people ride, but ones where the speeds are controlled, you know who's driving them. That we said, well, that's something that if our learners can get into college, we can get a scheme going. So it was Bill and his team working with, it happened to be North Devon Council that chose to take that up, applied to the Department of Transport to get that scheme approved, and we have a base for those scooters on campus at the moment, so that learners can get around within Barnstaple. But of course, if that pilot works out, there isn't any reason why other areas might look to see whether that can be extended.
Just on that, I've just struggled to see the date, but I'm aware that I've also been invited to talk to the steering committee on the Bideford to Barnstaple Rail Group. I think it's in the next week or so, a meeting coming up. So we'll certainly make sure we try and attend that.
There's a big bit about apprentices. We talked a bit about. I'm sorry.
Councillor Hudson.
Thank you. Just before you leave the transport to college issue thank you very much. Usually everybody can hear me, but what are we talking about in numbers as a percentage of your student roll? Because sometimes these problems seem huge, and perhaps, if you deal with them one bite at a time, they're not quite so bad. So it'd be good to know some facts and some data as to how many young people are struggling to access college, and be able to map that out. Now, I'm sure you've done those exercises, but as a local council, I think it would be very informative for us when we're looking at potential projects in the future, how we view transport, because it's a big issue, not just for students, for people going to hospital, coming into doctor's appointments, heaven forbid, getting to a bank. There are all sorts of areas where we as a local authority need to be looking at a wide range of transport issues.
Yeah, and when we had Harland and Wolff and CMTG, they came in, and transport was one of their big issues of apprenticeships, because a lot can't drive and they have to rely on parents, or they can't even think about getting an apprenticeship because they're not able to get there if they live in the villages. So it is a huge issue for the district.
Yeah, Chair, I mean, it's a data set that is quite difficult to pull together, and it does depend on kind of definitions as to what is a difficult journey and what's an impossible journey. Generally, managing to get to college on a bus from at first thing in the morning and at about 4:30 isn't too big a problem because we share those times with the schools, and the bus network is set up to provide transport between most of our areas and Barnstaple in particular at those times of the morning. It is more of a struggle for those then wanting to get to an apprenticeship place of work, because quite often those journeys aren't into either Bideford or Barnstaple, they're into one of those areas. As I say, we do work with Stagecoach, and happy to see if we can provide some more detail on certainly how many learners do come on what form of transport, and also to do some surveys with them as to just how difficult they find that.
Yeah, is it something as part of Northern Devon Futures? Is it something that you're working on or can look into?
It hasn't been something. I mean, transport generally has been something that has come up through the board. We haven't undertaken this work, but I can see some value in it. It may be possible for us to identify patterns in the data, such as distance or particular routes that you might need to travel on, and attendance and attainment and progression to good quality educational opportunities or work.
Councillor Hodson.
Sorry, can I just come back quickly? You know, one of the aims of levelling up funding is obviously to improve academic attainment. Yeah. And if you can't get your young people to college, or they're struggling, or they're losing heart because they've stood for an hour and a half waiting for a bus that doesn't turn up, you can't blame them wanting to go home and crawl back under the bedclothes until later on in the day. Yeah. So I think it is a really pertinent data set that we need to explore, and you need to be sharing with us. So thank you very much for that.
A big part of that partnership working is finding out what needs to happen for Petroc and for local businesses and for the town centres. No,
I really appreciate that, and I will take that back in terms of that as an action. We did speak a little while ago to a community college in the States, actually, that had some fairly sophisticated software that was able to show all of those sorts of those patterns. I think it's also, as we looking at Devon devolution and what powers might government devolve to us here, that it's a major thing across our patch, and it's one of the asks that we as colleges together, because I should say that partnership approach extends to the work that we do with Exeter College, that we do with City College Plymouth, and with South Devon College, the four Devon colleges. That was something that we thought would make a big difference to learners. But I'll certainly pick this up, and we'll look to see whether we can do some work around our own data.
Thank you. At the back.
Thanks, Chair. I don't suppose this recent fiasco with roadworks at Cedars, sorry to mention that, but do highways consult with you before they plan these things, if it was planned? Sorry, I'm being a bit sarcastic.
So we were aware that it was coming and had worked with Stagecoach and others to seek to understand what the kind of modelled implications of it would be. Certainly the first 2 or 3 days of the roadworks, they were intensely problematic for our students, for our staff, as well as for students and staff at Park and Pilton. and particularly from colleagues that were needing to come in from this side, including myself. It has improved, and delays are less than they were, I think, as the traffic lights have learnt the flow patterns, and also, as I understand it, that Devon have now provided a human intervention to assess the traffic coming through the four arms of the traffic lights and manually intervening when those traffic flows look to be subrational. Sean, I know you've spoken to Chief Exec at Devon on it, and it has been a big topic with our students and staff.
Yeah, and I have to say, whilst I suspect it was not the modelled disruption that they expected, when I raised it with the Chief Executive, I had a response within the hour, and then I had a response from their Deputy Director of Highways with a detailed explanation of the things that they were trying to do to put it right along the things that Bill said. So it seems they're certainly trying, and we're seeing some improvement, but fingers crossed that continues.
Thank you. And the next one's about inclusivity and diversity in further and higher education. You've touched on that with the SEN.
Yeah, with the SEN, and we it's certainly the case in terms of the kind of wealth that poverty is associated with lower educational achievement. It also correlates with other issues that students have, both special educational needs, but kind of patterns of exclusion and what have you in terms of from schools, and how that affects them. They come through to there we go, that's better. That's how it affects them. They come through from college. Our approach is to understand the learners that we have, the issues that they face, and try to support them with it. So we have a programme of bursaries that we're able to support around helping to remove some what might be economic barriers to participation. We measure right down to programme level the prospects of students that are disadvantaged and those who are not, in terms of that very kind of crude breakdown. We've now adopted a toolkit that helps our individual educators with their groups to understand the range of characteristics of learners and how they can respond in their teaching groups. We are seeing, as well, as I said, part of that change in the way that learners, the needs that learners are presenting with, we're having to adopt and develop new curriculum offers. So, for instance, there is a really surprisingly large number of learners who are so anxious about leaving their homes, they haven't been to school and they don't leave their home. So we've just launched a programme called H2O, Home to On Site, which starts in the first term, going out to do it's 2-to-1 work with the learner in their own home. Then it introduces them to, well, come into college. It's understand, how it can be, doing more of that in the third term with a view to bringing them in and kind of getting them to be able to take advantage of the full college experience. That's been really popular, and I should say we're only a term and a half in, but we've already got learners who in that time are on campus every week, which is a real bone. We have learners that have difficulty regulating their behaviours and have had patterns of exclusion or kind of day release alternative provision in their schools. And of course, the school's approach to disciplinary problems is different to us as college, because our role as a college is to prepare those young people as citizens and as employees. They need to be able to regulate their own behaviours and you know, because it's that process of becoming an adult. Some of the schools do it through a very regimented approach, but of course that's not life when you're living in as an adult. So we again have programs, so we don't say, right, you're out, that's not accepted, but where learners really do have difficulty regulating their behaviour, we have parallel programs, so they're not disrupting the behaviour and the learning of other learners, and we have specialists that support those learners in a group to get back on track, understand how to manage some of the emotional issues that they might experience, so that we can then get them back on the normal track. A number of these things we don't get any more money for. It's just about trying to meet the students' needs in the best way we can.
And also worth saying, on higher education, we are required to have and are pleased to have an access and participation plan setting out exactly how we support those from disadvantaged communities, those with no family history of higher education. That is due to be refreshed this year and needs to be submitted to Office for Students in the summer. So as part of that programme, we will be consulting on how we ensure that we can reach out to non-traditional university entrants. And as Sean said, that's one of the great features of University Centre for Northern Devon, is that we are able to work with individuals who perhaps couldn't access a mainstream university, whether that's because of their domestic circumstances, educational background, or whatever. And I was just trying to look at the stats, but they won't jump out as wanted. We certainly have a considerably higher number of students from non-traditional HE backgrounds than most other, certainly mainstream universities. But again, we could provide those figures if that would be useful.
There's a kind of group of apprenticeship questions.
Yeah, that was all from one person.
No, which is so that I think relates to a similar thing that we talked about, that apprenticeships are a really important part of our provision as a college. There's a question here about lack of choice, potentially. As with all these things, you need to have sufficient scale in order for us to not lose money. So if we lose money, then other learners would be losing out for us cross-subsidising that for them. It's also the case, there's a question here about level 2 apprenticeships, and we do have a number of level 2 apprenticeships, but the increase in demand, both for us and nationally, is in higher level apprenticeships. And so we have a apprenticeship provision right through at the moment to level 5, and we're looking at developing level 6 bachelor's degree apprenticeships. So at the moment you can get a foundation degree and through an apprenticeship route, so those learners don't have to borrow any money themselves, they get a job as a normal apprentice does, but allows them to get those higher level occupations. Our kind of approach as a college for young learners is to, because government is prepared to pay for them to study full-time for 3 years indeed at college, is to get them as far through their learning, as far up their learning as possible. Whenever they want to go through to join the labour market, to go and work, we say that's great, but don't stop learning, because it's that learning that's going to help you with the next job after that and the next job after that as your career changes in a number of different places. So we want to get them through and talk programmes as far as they can, but they have options, say at level 3, at level 4, at level 5, and we're developing at level 6 with our apprenticeship piece. If the person who raised the question wants